sister Jean, my brother Colin, and we would spend a lot of time together. My brother Colin, who was just 2.5 years older than me, but because Jean was 5 years older, and of course she had her own bedroom, which was a very posh thing in those days, she was very much my big sister. It was a wonderful time. Perhaps one of my early memories of Jean was when I was a pupil at Westbourne House School in Penarth. After club meetings, I would often be accompanied home by a group of young men who would stop off at the chip shop and buy me chips. And I thought, what a lovely, generous thing for people to do. At the same time, they were asking me about your big sister Jean. It was about this time I realised that quite a few men were interested in Jean at that time. One of them, whose name I forget, lived in Mountjoy Lane, and he was the son of a grocer. And because they used to have a lot of free gifts with cereal packets, he used to pass them on to me, for which I was very grateful indeed, all those novelties. But then there was Colin Mountain from Coleridge Avenue too, who lived practically opposite Russell, who gave me chocolates. It was wonderful. I owe so much to my sister, really. And then there was Paddy Handy, who actually sent me a shilling postlord at my birthday. I remember how tremendously moved I was. It's a long time I realised it wasn't because I was popular, it was because my sister was popular, really. And I was just beginning to enjoy this special period of attention when another young man called Russell Evans appeared on the scene. He was riding a Silver Rally Lenton sports bike. And you know, he never once tried to bribe me. In fact, I remember only too well how he showed me one day how if you take a couple of rose hips and you put a pin through the smaller one and the larger one and join them together, and then you take thorns off the roses and put them in the side and at the bottom, you have a little man. And I thought, what a wonderful idea this was. So I got myself a tray with a piece of string around my neck. I went around selling them. A half each, I think it was then. And you know, Russell came round and demanded 50%. And I realised at that time that this young man would go far. And then in September 1939, it was the day before war broke out, I was, as people do, practising parachute jumping off a neighbour's fence. That was an old tent. And I landed awkwardly and broke my leg. And as I was in plaster, my mother managed to get hold of a wheelchair, and Russell and Jean would be instructed to take me out for walks, which was very nice, really. And we'd go down to the seafront, and Russell soon warmed to the idea. He thought it was great, and it'd be a good idea to see how fast he could make it go. And it was fine on the flats. But there's a lower road in Victoria Park, a little path where there was a bull tree. There was a tree there which had a bow on the side of it, looking so much like the head of a bull that somebody had put glass eyes in and a ring in its nose. I remember looking at that, and it was the last thing I saw before I went flying into the bushes, where Russell completely lost control of the wheelchair. Neither Jean nor my mother were very pleased with this at all. And I believe that Russell, that you were banned from our house for a while at that time. And then in 1940, during the first year of the war, we moved next door to number 29. Perhaps the shortest move anyone has ever made, just to move next door. And we began to see much more Russell. Although in that time when he was banned, Jean was extremely clever, really, because she found out that if you pulled out a wire from the back of the radio, it wouldn't work. And my mother would say, what are we going to do? And Jean would say, But how about asking Russell that? He'll soon fix it for you, which he did. This was a time, of course, when all the windows were covered with blackout, and we weren't allowed to show lights at all. Because of this, Russell came round one day to fix a switch on the back door. Now, I want to tell you how the switch worked. There was a piece of tin fixed on the top of the door and another piece fixed on the jamb above, both with bare wires coming out. And so that whenever you opened the door, the two pieces slid apart and the kitchen light went out. Very clever idea indeed, really, but probably not one that would pass present-day standards of health and safety, not self-safety. But knowing how knowledgeable Russell was about all things electrical, I reminded you that Jean would sometimes not only disconnect a wire at the back of the radio, but also that she would complain. I remember saying one, we must get Russell round because I think the ligament's gone in the kettle. We didn't actually have the same technical knowledge. Russell at this time was a great cinema fan, particularly regarding horror films. You'd never believe it today, really, would you? I remember the day when we all visited Sully Island together, when Russell would reenact scenes for the films that he'd seen. He would throw himself off the rocks while clutching the gear down. It was absolutely terrific.
When I got up, they said, I'll do it again, Russell. And I throw myself over this cliff and sort of hit it one, I'll put my hands and pull it back.
That's right, yes, I remember it only too well. And some of these photos we've included will remind you of those things, Russell. In 1944, Jean and Russell were married at Trinity Church in Penarth. Jean's family were represented by her mother, her two brothers, Uncle Cooper and Doris and Ernie Matthews. Russell, I believe, represented by your parents, your sister Sadie, and your best friend, Norman Gander. And well, very soon after the wedding, anyway, Russell sailed for India with the Royal Signals as part of his army service. This was a very hard time for Jean, but during Russell's long absence did as much as he could really to prepare for his return. And as they knew where to live and accommodation was hard to find, she decided to decorate the garage at the bottom of the garden, because they thought they would have to live there. But soon after Russell's return, they managed to rent a flat on the third floor of a large house near St. Augustine's Church, where Michael was born, I believe, and sometimes later they moved to Glyndore Road. I always remember very well the lady who owned the flat where he first went. Her name was Mrs. Crawley, and I inadvertently addressed her as Mrs. Creepy.